Republicans prepare their agenda when they take control of the House, they've been saying for a while that one of their big priorities is the investigation into the Biden family business. Specifically, we've talked about this a bunch, Hunter Biden and the laptop and what's on it. Now, Republicans have been involved in this story for 2 years, but is the media finally seeing the light? CBS News this morning came out with what they had been calling a commissioned and independent forensic poll review of Hunter Biden's laptop data. And I want to tell you what they say they found.
The laptop data we had analyzed showed no evidence it was faked or tampered with.
There was one thing that got my attention, and that was a voicemail.
You're confident based on your analysis this is Hunter Biden's data and that it's real?
Yes.
Matron and his son Sean, both digital forensic experts, recovered images of credit cards, a driver's license, social security number.
Just the sheer volume of what we're dealing with, it would be difficult.
Hey, what's up?
To fabricate.
No trouble at all.
Hey, I mean, better late than never, right?
Hey, so we paying a visit to the triads. I don't know how they mixed up in all this shit, but I do know that a copy of Dre's phone was at their club. So that's what we starting to look at.
Unbelievable. But you're not going to believe this. In the end, after all that, CBS still managed to find a way to cover for Biden. Take a look.
After 2 years of scrutiny, the laptop has not produced evidence President Biden directly benefited from his son's business deals.
Hey, so just before you go full enhanced interrogation on the bouncer, here's the plan. We access the security camera system and cross-reference the footage with when we know the phone was there.
Shit sounds good to me, but can't we just hack the feed?
No deal. The system is some thrift store level shit. It's not even online. You'll need to get the physical tape from their office.
Oh shit, that's easy. Right, partner?
It's out there. There's no denying it. No one's denied it. So we know that that's true. They just will literally go to any lengths to cover up. There's also whistleblowers. There's people like Tony Bobulinski who have said that they got the emails and the documentation to prove that Joe Biden was intimately involved in the family business. But what do you expect? The establishment media have shifted their position on this 4 times in the past 2 years. Number one, the New York Post comes out with this bombshell report, October 2020, right before the election. So let's start with the first thing. The Washington Post fact checker suggested first, the laptop's just not real. It's not real. Then we move on to number 2. They say, okay, it's real, but it's just Russian disinformation. The laptop isn't Russian disinformation, but it's real. But President Biden, he is not involved. Now we go to number 4. Okay, the story is now that there's no evidence that he has publicly emerged, that his decisions were affected by his son's dealings. You see the arc there? First, it's completely ridiculous. Now it's, okay, but we can't publicly prove that he has anything to do with it. Publicly prove? What does that mean? We've got voicemails. We've got witnesses, documentation. Publicly prove? Those are weasel words. Washington weasel words. By the way, moving on, because this could go on for hours, I want to remind you, back not too long ago, when candidate Biden, he was so outraged on the campaign trail over the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. He said what happened to Khashoggi was, quote, it shocked him to his very soul. That's a big thing. If it's going to shock your soul, right? Man, that's got to be a big thing. And he promised to change, if president, how the U.S. treats Saudi Arabia if he were president. Maybe he forgot, though, because the Biden administration just ruled on Thursday that MBS now has immunity in the case because as of last month, he's the new prime minister. The Washington Post slammed the decision, writing that President Biden is failing to uphold America's most cherished values. By going along with the scheme, President Biden is turning his back on the fundamental principles of press freedom and equality. And it wasn't just the Post. Watch.
The Saudi Arabia policy is going to be one of, if not the most incoherent elements of Joe Biden's policy.
It's deeply embarrassing. I want to say humiliating for Biden to have gone seeking support from MBS and to have gotten basically the back of his hand.
Joe Biden is very aware of all the dimensions of the Saudi Arabian relationship. So it's to say we're going to make them a pariah, we're going to recenter our foreign policy around human rights. To come into office to start to act on that that, and then to have this dizzying reversal with when gas prices start rising, then the fist bump, then the retraction. It's just completely incoherent.
What are we getting in exchange for letting this thug get away with murder, Mr. President? Other than the stink of complicity.
Now remember, it shocked him to his core, his soul. And now he's like, hey, by the way, you've got immunity. Unbelievable. I've seen a lot of hypocrisy in politics over 30 years. This is the top of that list. Unbelievable. I gotta move on, though, because Elon Musk this weekend reinstated former President Trump, Twitter, and several other platforms in the aftermath of the January 6th incidents. And it left some never-Trumpers on the right all upset. They called it a terrible mistake and a gift to what Elon Musk was doing, a gift to the Democrats. Others, of course, are blaming Russia because Elon Musk made the decision after running an online poll, and they're claiming without evidence that it was all Russian bots. On Friday, CBS News announced that they were suspending their activity on Twitter out of an abundance of caution because they were so concerned about how Elon Musk was running Twitter and whether or not there were enough precautions in place. But check this out. One day, 16 hours and 31 minutes later, CBS News, they were back on Twitter. By the way, so far, Trump has not returned to Twitter. He's instead saying that he's going to stick with Truth Social, right? We talked about this before. It'll be interesting. I'm going to bet you that he does get back on Twitter before the end of 2022. That's just a personal bet. So far, he's making the case that he's got to stay on there. In the last piece of news, President Biden, over the weekend, he turned 80. He will be the first president to do so in office. And that brings us to the big age-old question. How old is too old to be president? Well, some Democrats see age as a potential issue in 2024. Others came out in Biden's defense yesterday. Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips says he thinks Biden's done a wonderful job being the bridge he promised to be. I guess it's just an old bridge. But it's time for a new leader, generation of leaders. California Congressman Juan Vargas brushed off concerns about Biden's cognitive ability, saying everyone has trouble thinking of words from time to time. It's just that Biden has trouble all the time. And the chair of New Hampshire's Rockingham County Democrats, Larry Drake, compared Biden, check this out, to Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl at 43, saying that we need to reassess our view of aging. I don't think that was a very good comparison.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. So, this latest Joe Biden, John Kerry, Green New Deal socialist scam, the wealthy Western economies are supposed to sign up for so-called climate reparations. They're going to pay poor countries for alleged damage caused by the industrial world's use of fossil fuels. All this is a terrible idea. Just another one of these socialist central planning redistributionist thoughts that always plagued the Biden administration, and unfortunately too many other countries as well, especially the Europeans. This came out of the 2015 Paris Accord, and it was never implemented in the U.S. because the Republican Congress wouldn't do it during the Obama years. Now, one of Donald Trump's best ideas was pulling out of the 2015 Paris Accord altogether, and instead opting to turn on the spigots for all forms of energy, incidentally, fracking, renewables, nuclear, you name it. That gave the U.S. energy dominance and ultimately independence, especially independence from the Looney Tunes 2015 Paris Accord. Now, for the umpteenth time, I will note that the U.S. is the world leader, at least among the advanced countries, world leader in reducing carbon emissions by far. And we will talk to climate scientist Bjorn Lomborg later in the show, who has steadfastly argued that the poor countries would like as much energy as they can to improve their poverty-stricken economies. Most of them would very much like to have oil and gas power, including fertilizer, to solve the plague of food scarcity. In fact, most of the low-income countries have no interest in abolishing fossil fuels. They're way smarter than Mr. Kerry and his radical New Green Deal followers. Heck, even Germany and the European Union has now relabeled natural gas as a clean-burning green fuel. In other words, the European greenies are a lot smarter than the U.S. greenies. Once upon a time, one of these Paris Accord meetings promised $100 billion a year for which to pay the poor, but that never happened. This latest reparations scam thus far has no set amounts, no timetables, and rest assured, the Republican Congress will not approve any such funding, no matter what that final number might be. Meanwhile, Mr. Kerry and his merry band of prosperity killers really has his eyes on the so-called international development banks, doesn't he? Especially the World Bank, which Kerry and his followers would love to convert into a world climate bank. Fortunately, World Bank President David Malpass,
Hey, how can I help?
has already approved some energy rescue
Sure thing.
money,
Limo
will
en
not
route.
allow any sort of ultra-green takeover. And then, of course, it looks like China will get off scot-free because they hold on to their nonsensical category as a so-called undeveloped or middle-income nation. This is exactly the same kind of scam they used in the World Trade Organization, the WTO, to maintain rule-breaking, high-tariff and non-tariff barriers that have done so much damage to American blue-collar working folks. China, of course, has been a model of Green New Deal citizen on the world stage, since that well-known renewable fuel called coal accounts for 60% of their power, and they're planning for over 200 new coal plants over the next 10 years. Additionally, let me add, climate science has not definitively linked carbon with natural disasters. Again, Bjorn Lomborg has a lot to say about this subject and shown it not to be true. But what should be the case is the application of free market capitalism to energy, as well as every other part of the world economy. Free market capitalism is the greatest prosperity creator and poverty fighter ever known. Free market capitalism spawns undreamed of technological advances and innovative practices that will solve climate issues just as they have solved every other problem ever known to mankind. So, let's just say no to climate reparations or other redistribution schemes and socialism in general. You know why? Because it's a loser. Always has been and always will be. And that is my right.
You heard of life insurance with living benefits? This type of life insurance policy pays out tax-free.
Yeah, you gotta put more into it. y'all see that hesitate on this right motherfucker, what it is did me. They hesitate on me.